So we looked at the kind of traditional recovery requirements. I would tend to describe these natural disaster side of things. So, the common things that we'll probably be used to from old, of power loss potentially to our data center, whether that's actually being flooded, have an internet outage due to, I know one time someone managed to literally cut through the main line. That was always a fun one for one of the councils I supported back a few years ago, as well as, of course, elements around major hardware issue if there's actually a fire or severe elements there. When we look to kind of more modern recovery requirements, probably not going to be a surprise to anybody on this call that we're going to certainly talk to that cyber attack. There's now a profile of threat and a recovery issue that we need to protect against in a fairly significant way. But also, it's also the change in working styles that we've seen within businesses, both from a point of view of certainly most impactfully over the last few years with the pandemic, but also the actual way of how we deliver IT service, the change into hybrid services and our data being in a fairly highly distributed manner across multiple systems and outside potentially of normal direct network and access control. So we think a little bit around the traditional recovery requirements because they haven't gone anywhere. They're still ever present and something that we have to obviously consider and manage, of course, as well. If we look at those from a point of view of likelihood and malintent, the likelihood of those events wasn't massive. But one of the important differentials between traditional and modern is that in traditional sites, although it might feel like it at the time, you can't really necessarily say a flood has it personally out for you as a business or is trying to specifically take out your organization. It's probably fair to say, and I think no one would probably disagree with this in any major way, is it did lead to a fairly traditional piece around set and forget. We'd have the service set up, we'd get it configured, we'd put up our first workloads, and then, over time, it would start to go less and less on the priority list as it became more and more of a, reactive service that we'd kind of get to when we had time. It tended to mean as well that the systems were underinvested and under-resourced, But when we start to then change that to looking at the modern recovery requirements and how that changes the dynamic of likelihood and malintent, it's unfortunately very fair to say that the likelihood has increased pretty substantially. And the challenging bit really that comes in with that is that likelihood increase has been due to the introduction of that new primary threat vector from cyber attack, where unfortunately it is very fair to say that that has a definitive malintent. This is something where it is purposefully trying to disable your organization and cause direct damage and harm and prevent you from recovering. Side effects of that is that the businesses are starting to see that as a much more ever present. The awareness of the board and the business means that we'll be very much more of that active participant, something where we will be much more actively involved within the continuity service and need to be, kind of delivering that through. Equally, that's meant that, there is more of a presence and awareness that the systems need to be regularly managed. They need to be appropriately resourced and effectively invested into. And ultimately, the actual recovery solution itself needs to be a secure bastion. So even if they manage to get through the walls, then you can't get through the fort kind of side of things. You've got that inner defense piece where you know that you've got a safe zone that you can recover from and take that confidence in that protection that it is a secure bastion for you.